In the Holy City Styx, the Fortune Chamber of Commerce could barely maintain itself. In fact, only an empty shell was left now. Although there were still a few top-notch perfected lords maintaining it, the Chamber of Commerce would definitely fall apart completely in less than 1,000 years. Could the perfected spirit of perfected deity Fortune awaken and return to his peak within 1,000 years? Everything was uncertain. The current Fortune Chamber of Commerce had almost collapsed. Those perfected lords who were loyal to the Fortune Chamber of Commerce naturally hated Lin Feng to the bone. A mere perfected lord had actually slain a god. Moreover, he had become famous by using the perfected deity of their Chamber of Commerce as a stepping stone. This was simply unacceptable. They would probably have attacked Lin Feng long ago if not for their lack of strength. Vice President, according to the latest news, perfected deity Thousand Star and perfected deity All Desire of the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce had a dispute with the Mutual Assistance Alliance over a new chaotic continent. Mutual Assistance Alliance? I've never heard of it. What does this have to do with us? The vice president was expressionless. Right now, they could barely maintain the Fortune Chamber of Commerce. He was no longer interested in other affairs. Even if he was interested, they were powerless. This involved competition over a chaotic continent. Forget about them. Even if perfected deity Fortune was resurrected, he would not be able to compete with the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce for a chaotic continent. Vice President, have you heard of the Mutual Assistance Alliance? It's a newly established faction founded by 18 perfected lords of Holy City Primum Mobile. The alliance leader is Lin Feng. What? Lin Feng? The vice president was slightly stunned. Then he threw his head back and laughed aloud. Haha, arrogant. How arrogant. As expected, this day would come for Lin Feng sooner or later. He relied on some scheme to make the president reincarnate. Does he think he's invincible? Haha, if perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star attack, Lin Feng will definitely be dead. That's right. If perfected deity Thousand Star and perfected deity All Desire join forces, apart from those top-notch perfected deities, no one is their match. Lin Feng is dead for certain this time. Let's go take a look too. I must see Lin Feng's end with my own eyes. Hence, these people hurriedly prepared to rush to the secret tower. This was because apart from perfected deities, no one could warp space. If they did not warp space and take the chaotic spaceship over, there was no knowing how long it would take. The battle would have long ended by then. However, the secret tower would definitely send perfected deities to record the details of the battle for such a major event. It would also attract many people. In the Prime Sky Chamber of Commerce of Holy City Primum Mobile, Your Majesty, the latest news is that Lin Feng has established the Mutual Assistance Alliance. He is actually competing for a chaotic continent with perfected deity Thousand Star and perfected deity All Desire of the Holy City Styx. They are currently confronting each other in the chaos, and a great battle is imminent. Swoosh! Perfected deity Prime Sky suddenly opened his eyes. Mutual Assistance Alliance? He even provoked the two old fellows Thousand Star and All Desire. They're not simple. If the two of them join forces, even I have to retreat. However, this Lin Feng is even more extraordinary. How can I miss such a lively and unprecedented event? Perfected deity Prime Sky then reached out and waved his hand, instantly stepping into the spatial passage. However, today the two of them gathered unanimously. Absolutist, have you heard about Lin Feng's matter? Haha, of course I've heard of it. Why? Mystic Spirit, you're going to watch the battle too. Of course. How can we miss such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? However, Lin Feng is too unwise. Perfected deity Thousand Star and perfected deity All Desire are not easy to deal with. The fact that a perfected lord like Lin Feng can make perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star join forces to deal with him is already enough proof of his strength. I don't agree with you. I think Lin Feng has a better chance of winning, because he's more mysterious. Perfected deity Mystic Spirit was a little surprised. He knew that perfected deity Absolutist had personally fought with Lin Feng, so he might be more familiar with Lin Feng. Then let's go together. All right, let's go together. Hence, the two former archenemies also traveled together now. Quick, quick, hurry to the secret tower. The top perfected lord, Lin Feng, is fighting with two perfected deities. We can't miss such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The top perfected lord has established the Mutual Assistance Alliance. If perfected Lord Lin can win this time, this Mutual Assistance Alliance will probably be able to take the opportunity to ascend to power at once. I have to seize the opportunity. Perhaps I can join too. The top perfected lord is fighting two perfected deities alone. Unbelievable. At this moment, there were simply countless such scenes in the 7 holy cities. Even Lin Feng had underestimated his current reputation. He's especially famed among those perfected lords. Previously, they had only heard of Lin Feng's magnificent feat of slaying a god, but they had never seen it with their own eyes. They were very regretful and felt that they had missed a chance to witness history. But now there was actually such an opportunity. Moreover, this time he was fighting two powerful perfected deities, perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star, alone. That was incomparably sensational. The secret tower even immediately sent 3 perfected deities over to record the details of the battle. They even used special methods to transmit the images. Just the qualifications to watch it alone cost several top-grade chaotic prime crystals, and they earned a lot from it. Lin Feng's rallying power over those perfected lords was very strong, and his influence far exceeded that of ordinary perfected deities. Many perfected lords practically flocked to the secret tower. Many perfected deities paid more attention to perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star. The last time perfected deity All Desire attacked was thousands of years ago. He joined forces with perfected deity Thousand Star and defeated a famous perfected deity. No one knew how strong the current perfected deity All Desire was. Moreover, it was an unprecedented battle with the top perfected lord. Perfected deities could warp space. They did not have to wait for news in the secret tower. Instead, they warped space directly and rushed to the location of the battle. For a moment, the 7 holy cities of chaos were excited over this matter. Swoosh! One perfected deity after another had rushed to the chaos. They could clearly see Lin Feng and the 2 perfected deities standing in the void, but the 2 parties did not fight immediately. It was as if something was brewing. Look! Is that the new chaotic continent? It's really a new chaotic continent. TSK. No wonder perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star fought. There's a new chaotic continent with abundant resources. It's only natural to fight for it. Who'd expect a perfected lord to interfere in the competition for a chaotic continent one day? One after another, ancient, powerful, or obscure perfected deities warped space and arrived. Whether anyone knew them or not, they could warp space to come here, and the aura around them was so powerful. They were clearly all perfected deities. Many perfected lords might never have seen so many perfected deities in their entire lives. As the divine array had already been shattered, the chaotic continent could no longer be concealed. It was all exposed to many perfected deities. In the past, Yuan Zhenggang and the other perfected lords would definitely be very afraid. But now, apart from a trace of worry, they actually felt more confident. This was because no perfected deity came to snatch it. They had even tacitly agreed that this chaotic continent would belong to the winner between Lin Feng and the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce. This was strength. Perhaps they were benefiting from the power of the 2 perfected deities of the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce, but being able to compete with the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce for this chaotic continent in itself represented the Mutual Assistance Alliance and Lin Feng's current strength. This was the right to be on equal footing with many perfected deities. No matter how proud or confident they were, all the perfected lords knew that this was all thanks to the figure in the chaos. Lin Feng, the top perfected lord of chaos. If they succeeded, the Mutual Assistance Alliance would completely renowned throughout the chaos. If they failed, everything was over. Perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star stood in the chaotic void. Sensing the countless gazes around them, they remained unmoved. Those who could rush here were all perfected deities. There were even many old acquaintances of perfected deity All Desire among them. It was the same for Lin Feng. He also saw perfected deity prime sky, perfected deity absolutist, and so on. Lin Feng did not know many perfected deities, but many perfected deities were famous, so he could roughly guess who they were. The gazes of these perfected deities were basically sizing Lin Feng up. Moreover, they were very impolite and sized him up without restraint, with a high and mighty air to it. Lin Feng did not get angry. He knew that this was very normal. Even if he was the top perfected lord, even if he had once killed a perfected deity above his level, so what? No one would think much of it unless they saw it with their own eyes, let alone these high and mighty perfected deities. However, Lin Feng also believed that after today's battle, no perfected deity would dare to size him up so brazenly. Boom! Both parties were brewing their auras, but the aura on Lin Feng's body erupted first. Halos appeared behind Lin Feng. 1, 2, 3. In the blink of an eye, 42 halos were already formed. Every halo represented a type of chaotic spirit flames. Grow! Lin Feng growled. Ever since he cultivated the spirit flame hallowed body, he naturally knew the true form of his hallowed body. If he wanted to completely unleash the power of his hallowed body, such a figure would not do. Hence, Lin Feng's hallowed body expanded again, growing from a height of 10,000 feet to nearly 100,000 feet. This was also the limit of the spirit flame hallowed body after fusing 42 types of chaotic spirit flames. The immense pressure brought about by the manifestation of the hallowed body made the expressions of some surrounding perfected deities change. Many perfected deities had very complicated feelings about Lin Feng, the top perfected lord. They were a little surprised, a little disdainful, but perhaps also a little curious. However, no matter what, they could not treat Lin Feng on the same level. But now, Lin Feng had transformed into a 100,000-foot tall giant and manifested the true form of the hallowed body. The terrifying pressure surprised even these perfected deities. At once, all the perfected deities took him seriously. What kind of divine ability is this? It actually has such a terrifying pressure. It looks like some kind of fire-type body-tempering divine ability. Normally, this kind of divine ability does not require comprehending chaotic rules that are too profound, but it has very high requirements for resources, and cultivation is very demanding. Even ordinary perfected deities won't find it very easy to become adept at them, let alone cultivate them to a profound level. There's nothing to fear about a body-tempering divine ability. As long as one doesn't approach, they'll be a passive target for attacks. How many divine abilities can a mere perfected lord withstand? Some perfected deities were disdainful. They felt that although Lin Feng's body-tempering divine ability was powerful, its disadvantages were also huge. As long as they distanced themselves from him and attacked using rule-tempering divine abilities, no matter how strong Lin Feng's divine ability was, how much could he withstand? Some truly powerful body-tempering divine abilities could remain unscathed after resisting the attacks of a few or even dozens of rule-tempering divine abilities head-on. Fighting against such an expert was truly despairing, and their physique was even comparable to the physiques of some powerful chaotic divine beasts. It's this divine ability. Perfected deity absolutist and perfected deity prime sky looked at Lin Feng's enormous hallowed body with solemn expressions. They had fought with Lin Feng back then, and had even become stepping stones to Lin Feng's fame. It was just that the news of perfected deity fortune being killed by Lin Feng was too explosive, so no one paid attention to the two of them. Very few people knew that back then, Lin Feng had fought 3 perfected deities alone. However, they would not forget that battle themselves. It was this powerful fire divine ability that made them fail on the verge of success. To a certain extent, it was actually perfected deity prime sky who enabled Lin Feng's success, allowing Lin Feng's hallowed body to refine the 34th type of chaotic spirit flames. The 42 halos represent 42 types of chaotic spirit flames. He's even stronger than when he fought with us back then. Perfected deity prime sky muttered softly, his expression very solemn. He had fought with Lin Feng in that battle back then, so he naturally knew the details of Lin Feng's divine ability. Each halo represented a chaotic spirit flame. The more chaotic spirit flames there were, the stronger Lin Feng's hallowed body and divine ability would be. Back then, there were only 34 chaotic spirit flames. Now, there were 8 additional chaotic spirit flames, forming a total of 42 chaotic spirit flames. The current Lin Feng had probably already become stronger than before. Perfected Deity Absolutist and Perfected Deity Prime Sky were not the only ones with solemn expressions. They were rather wary of Lin Feng's divine ability. Perfected Deity Thousand Star was also very wary. He even sent a voice transmission to Perfected Deity All Desire. Perfected Deity All Desire. Be careful of Lin Feng's divine ability. It's indeed very strong. I almost fell to this divine ability. Perfected Deity All Desire appeared calm on the surface, but in reality, he was also extremely wary. Let's join forces and attack. Perfected Deity All Desire pushed on. So what if Lin Feng's divine ability was strong? He was more confident in his divine ability. All Desire Divine Ability, Reincarnation World, Descend. Perfected Deity All Desire waved his hand, and many special chaotic rules began to be mobilized. Invisible fluctuations seemed to envelop Lin Feng at once. Boom! In an instant, Lin Feng felt as if he had arrived in a new world. Even though he knew very well that this world was fake and everything was illusory, he could not help but be immersed in it. This was the strange divine ability of Perfected Deity All Desire, the Reincarnation World. This was not the real world, but a virtual world. Everything was illusory, but it was a complete world. Everything was constructed by Perfected Deity All Desire, and he used a special method to pull his opponents into the Reincarnation World. If one was immersed in Reincarnation World and could not extricate themselves, as time passed, they might even forget who they were. They might even become a slave to Perfected Deity All Desire. This was the terrifying aspect of the Reincarnation World. This strange divine ability made countless perfected deities extremely wary. It's the Reincarnation World again. Perfected Deity All Desire's divine ability is really terrifying. It can immerse people in an illusory world and make them unable to extricate themselves without their notice. I heard that for this divine ability of Perfected Deity All Desire, the more perfect the world is, the more powerful the divine ability would be. When the world is completely perfected, even a peak perfected deity probably won't be able to detect its flaws. At that stage, Perfected Deity All Desire might be able to improve this divine ability to a greater divine ability. Impressive. This divine ability is simply impossible to guard against. With the help of Perfected Deity Thousand Star, who can be its match? It's practically invincible among those who beneath top-notch perfected deities. Seeing Perfected Deity All Desire use the divine ability, the Reincarnation World, all the perfected deities' eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of wariness appeared in their eyes. This kind of strange divine ability that was impossible to guard against was what was truly terrifying. This was because they did not even know how to resist it. One might be able to wake up with their conviction, but what if they could not? This uncontrollable power was naturally daunting. In fact, Lin Feng, who had just used the true form of a 100,000 feet tall hallowed body, was extremely oppressive, causing many perfected deities to treat him with caution. However, at this moment, facing the divine ability of Perfected Deity, All Desire's Reincarnation World, Lin Feng's gaze also became confused and lifeless. It was obvious that he had already been pulled into the Reincarnation World and could not extricate himself. A perfected lord is just a perfected lord after all. If his cultivation level is not high enough, how can a perfected lord resist the Reincarnation World, when even perfected deities cannot? He's bound to lose, a perfected deity said firmly. He seemed ready to predict the outcome of this battle. Thousand-star divine ability. Die. Lin Feng was immersed in the Reincarnation World. Even the 100,000 feet tall true form of the hallowed body lost its oppressive aura at once. Perfected Deity Thousand Star also activated his divine ability. The power of his divine ability was extremely terrifying. Coupled with the divine ability of Perfected Deity All Desire, the effect was surprisingly strong. This was also an important reason why the two perfected deities were invincible when joining forces. Boom! The power of the thousand-star divine ability enveloped Lin Feng's massive hallowed body. It descended from the sky and engulfed Lin Feng's hallowed body. No matter how resistant a hallowed body was, how many times could it withstand a divine ability? It's over, it's over. He's a completely passive target for taking hits. When perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star join forces, their divine abilities complement each other. They are simply invincible. Forget about Lin Feng. Apart from top-notch perfected deities, which perfected deity can contend with them? Seeing Lin Feng's massive hallowed body being struck by the thousand-star divine ability time and again, all the perfected deities shuddered. Lin Feng's hallowed body could barely hold out only after enduring such a violent rule-tempering divine ability for a few times. It seemed like it was only a matter of time for him to fail. Alliance leader, wake up! Yuan Zhenggang, perfected Lord Long, and the other perfected lords all shouted. Unfortunately, Lin Feng did not move at all. If one could wake from sounds, it would not be the famous divine ability that made perfected deity All Desire's reputation. How is it so resistant? Once, twice, thrice. When perfected deity Thousand Star used the Thousand Star divine ability again and again, he was certain that Lin Feng was indeed immersed in the reincarnation world and could not extricate himself. He did not even put up any defenses. Only the true form of his hallowed body was exposed before them. Even though the hallowed body was very strong, he was just a sitting duck that perfected deity Thousand Star could attack to his heart's content. But what was the situation now? Perfected deity Thousand Star's divine ability had attacked without holding back 3 times. Yet Lin Feng could actually withstand it. Even his aura did not weaken by much. How could this be possible? Perfected deity Thousand Star was not the only one who could not understand it. The others could not either. What's going on? The divine ability of perfected deity Thousand Star is not that easy to deal with. It's extremely powerful. With a single strike, no matter how strong a chaotic spirit treasure is, it would fall apart. However, perfected Lord Lin withstood 3 divine ability attacks. Even his aura doesn't seem to have weakened by much. What kind of divine ability is so terrifying? Impressive, impressive. I've long heard that the top perfected lord relied on a miraculous body-tempering divine ability to kill perfected deity Fortune and accomplish the feat of slaying a god. Originally, I didn't think much of it, but from the looks of it, this divine ability is really powerful. It's probably a powerful greater divine ability. What's this? He's invincible despite allowing perfected deity Thousand Star to attack at will. Many perfected deities grew restless when they saw this scene. They did not know Lin Feng very well, but they knew perfected deity Thousand Star very well. In particular, perfected deity Thousand Star's Thousand Star divine ability was quite good among offensive lesser divine abilities. With Lin Feng's Ennead Wind Flame divine ability as a basis for comparison, it was not inferior to the Ennead Wind Flame divine ability in its consummate state at all. In the past, when perfected deity Thousand Star cooperated with perfected deity All Desire and used his offensive divine ability, they almost never encountered any resistance. Even if someone could resist it once, they definitely would not be able to resist it for the second or third time. But now, after Lin Feng had been attacked 3 times, his aura still did not weaken by much. It was shocking. For the first time, many perfected deities got to know Lin Feng, the top perfected lord. However, although perfected deity Thousand Star's attack did not work, perfected Long, Yuan Zhenggang, and even perfected deity Mystic Spirit and perfected deity Absolutist all frowned. Huh? Something's wrong. If perfected Lord Lin remains in this state, the situation will be very dangerous. That's right. Alliance leader seemed to have been pulled into an illusory world by the divine ability of perfected deity All Desire's reincarnation world. He is immersed in it and still hasn't woken up. This makes him a sitting duck. If he doesn't wake up, no matter how strong the hallowed body is, there will come a time when it gives out. Perfected deity Mystic Spirit, Lin Feng can't hold out for long. How do you know? Haha, look at the halos behind Lin Feng. Originally, there were 42 halos, which represent 42 types of chaotic spirit flames. This is the foundation of his divine ability. The number of chaotic spirit flames represents the power of his hallowed body. Although perfected deity Thousand Stars' divine ability doesn't seem to be effective in a short period of time, what about over a long time? Moreover, it's not that the 3 strikes of the Thousand Star divine ability didn't work. The effects are just subtle. After those 3 strikes of the divine ability, haven't 6 halos behind Lin Feng disappeared? That seems to be the case. Actually, some perfected deities had already discovered some abnormalities. Perfected deity All Desire was one of them. His gaze was deep as he said indifferently, "Perfected deity Thousand Star. This lad's divine ability is strange. His hallowed body is powerful, but he's not invincible. At the very least, every time your divine ability strikes, you can break 2 of his chaotic spirit flames. I believe it won't take long before you kill him completely." Perfected deity Thousand Star also gritted his teeth. He had also realized that his Thousand Star divine ability could only blast away 2 chaotic spirit flames from Lin Feng every time. Lin Feng had a total of 42 chaotic spirit flames. In that case, would he have to use his divine ability 21 times? Even perfected deity Thousand Star had to admit that without perfected deity All Desire, he would be far from Lin Feng's match, and might even really fall. Even though Lin Feng was only a sitting duck now, he still had to blast him 21 times. This was the Spirit Flame divine ability, which had yet to be cultivated to the mastery state, let alone the consummate state. The Spirit Flame hallowed body was created with the intention of creating an ultimate divine ability. Even if it did not become an ultimate divine ability in the end, it was not something that ordinary divine abilities could compare to. 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, Lin Feng was in a very bad state. Perfected deity Thousand Star gritted his teeth from the repeated bombardment of divine abilities. He might lose all his dignity. After all, it took him such a long time to deal with a sitting duck that could not resist. However, as long as Lin Feng did not wake up from the reincarnation world, he would always be a sitting duck. It was only a matter of time before he was defeated. Lin Feng, however, was different. He was indeed already immersed in the reincarnation world. However, he was not completely immersed in it as the other perfected deities had imagined. The reincarnation world is such a strange divine ability. Everything is illusory, but everything is real. Illusion and reality are difficult to define in the first place. Lin Feng was actually not immersed in it. He already knew that the divine ability of perfected deity All Desire was strange. Previously, he had already allowed the cosmic power in his body to circulate throughout his body, maintaining his consciousness at all times. He just wanted to see what was so profound about the strange divine ability of perfected deity All Desire. Moreover, he actually knew the situation outside very well. The power of the Spirit Flame hallowed body had exceeded even Lin Feng's imagination. Originally, the hallowed body from the first 33 types of chaotic spirit flames could only barely manage to resist very ordinary divine abilities. But now, after the 42 types of chaotic spirit flames were all refined into his hallowed body, Lin Feng's spirit flame hallowed body had already become several times stronger. Even if he stood still, ordinary lesser divine abilities would not be able to break it, and it would be enough to hold out for a long time. Hence, Lin Feng was not in a hurry. He had a vague feeling that since the reincarnation world of perfected deity All Desire was claimed to be a perfected illusory world, it might be of some help to his internal universe. What was missing from Lin Feng's internal universe now? Actually, even Lin Feng himself did not know, but he understood that his internal universe had already reached a bottleneck. This had nothing to do with the size of his internal universe. His internal universe could still expand, but no matter how much it expanded, Lin Feng kept feeling that his internal universe was still missing something. If he did not understand what was missing, his internal universe would never be perfected. Then, one day, his internal universe would even collapse. That's right, collapse. The reason was very simple. It was because even origin universes would slowly decline. There was a time limit. Once the time was up, the origin universe would completely die out. Lin Feng did not want his internal universe to face such a cruel reality one day. Then, he had to perfect his internal universe completely, and even find a way to make it eternal. However, Lin Feng only had a vague feeling and did not even know what the problem was. He could only refer to some other worlds or other universes. Since he had not found other worlds, this perfected deity all desires reincarnation world was also an illusory complete world. It was a good reference. Who would have thought that Lin Feng would still be in the mood to study the reincarnation world of perfected deity all desire in such a life-or-death battle? Lin Feng maintained his consciousness, but voluntarily remained in perfected deity all desires reincarnation world. Lin Feng roughly understood why it was called the reincarnation world. At this moment, he had transformed into a tiny blade of grass in the reincarnation world. Perhaps he only had the lifespan of a season before dying. Next, he turned into an ant before dying again, and then transformed into some other living being right on the heels of that. After thousands of lifetimes, he finally became human. However, even humans only had a short lifespan of a few decades. Then, he would die and turn into a blade of grass. This was another cycle. If one could not wake up, they would be immersed in the reincarnation world. The cycle of reincarnation was infinite. Lin Feng had already completed a reincarnation in the reincarnation world. This was indeed a complete world. How complete was it? It was so complete that no one could tell if it was real or fake. It was so complete that even if one claimed it was the real world, no one would doubt it. It was so complete that every part of it seemed natural, without any deliberate design. This was especially the case for reincarnation. All kinds of reincarnations completed this world. It was precisely because there were reincarnations, eternal and infinite reincarnations, that this world could truly be considered complete, without any flaws. Lin Feng had an epiphany. He seemed to have had a trace of inspiration and comprehended something, yet he did not seem to have grasped it. Reincarnation, reincarnation. Could it be that reincarnation is what my internal universe lacks? Boom! Lin Feng's mind went blank. Countless thoughts surged. Reincarnation. That's right, reincarnation. The internal universe was missing reincarnations. Lin Feng had always been worried, or rather very confused. The 3,000 universe demons in his internal world, such as Pan, had even reached the realm of peak chaotic perfected persons. However, they could not develop perfected spirits. Perhaps they could also take the path of chaotic dire beasts. They could cultivate to become chaotic spirit beasts without developing perfected spirits. Specializing in cultivating the physique was also a viable method, but this was only a stopgap measure. It could not conceal what was missing in Lin Feng's internal universe, which was incomplete. But now, Lin Feng finally understood what his internal universe lacked, and that was reincarnation. Without reincarnation, if the living beings in the internal universe died, they would dissipate in the internal universe before being returned to it, but they could not form an effective cycle. If there was reincarnation, there would be order for everything. What was the most important thing in a complete universe and a complete world? Order, of course. It was just like the chaos. It looked very chaotic. Apart from the holy cities of chaos, there was fighting and killing everywhere. Be it chaotic continents or origin universes, neither seemed safe. However, in reality, reincarnation could also occur in the chaos. It was just that this power was not something a perfected lord could interfere with. It was precisely because of reincarnation that the chaos did not become even more chaotic. This was only chaos on the surface. In reality, the chaos had always been very orderly. That was the order of reincarnation. Only with order could a world be complete, thrive, and expand continuously. He understood. He understood everything now. Lin Feng's mind was suddenly enlightened. This reincarnation world is really not bad. However, it's time to end it. Lin Feng muttered softly. Swoosh. The cosmic power in his body circulated. Immediately, the surrounding scene seemed to shatter. Boom. The 1,000-star divine ability struck Lin Feng hard again. Crack. This was already the 15th attack. Originally, there were 42 halos on Lin Feng's hallowed body, but now there were only 12 halos left. A crack even appeared on Lin Feng's hallowed body after the strike of the divine ability just now. This meant that Lin Feng's hallowed body was about to reach its limit, and could no longer hold out. The crack meant that Lin Feng was already injured. Haha! Push harder. Lin Feng is dead for certain. Perfected deity Thousand Stars' gaze was fervent, and even vaguely insane. He was a dignified perfected deity who usually presided over the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce. His status was high up, and he overlooked all living beings. When had he ever lost all his dignity like today? The people who came to watch the battle today were all famous supreme perfected deities. Even though these perfected deities did not ridicule him, their gazes kept sweeping across Lin Feng and perfected deity Thousand Star. The judgment within was evident. This was mockery, blatant mockery. Even a dignified perfected deity could not do anything to a perfected lord who could not resist and was equivalent to a sitting duck. This was truly a great humiliation. Perfected deity Thousand Star was already incomparably furious, but now that he had lost all his dignity, there was nothing he could do. Lin Feng did not even attack. He was indeed unable to do anything to Lin Feng in a short period of time. Now, Lin Feng's hallowed body was finally about to collapse. How could perfected deity Thousand Star not be overjoyed? Thousand Star divine ability. When the divine ability struck Lin Feng's body for the 11th time, 2 more halos representing 2 chaotic spirit flames disappeared, leaving only 10 halos. These were also the last 10 chaotic spirit flames on Lin Feng's body. Furthermore, more and more cracks appeared on Lin Feng's body. However, at this moment, Lin Feng, whose eyes had been shut tightly, suddenly opened his eyes. Swoosh! Lin Feng opened his eyes, but there was no longer confusion in them. Instead, he was incomparably calm and composed. This meant that Lin Feng had woken up. Everyone was shocked. Even perfected deity Thousand Star did not brew the 12th strike of the divine ability. Surprise appeared on his face. A sharp glint flashed across perfected deity All Desire's eyes. You actually woke up. Perfected deity All Desire seemed to find it a little unbelievable. Previously, when he suddenly attacked Lin Feng in the chaotic continent, Lin Feng had also regained consciousness. At that time, perfected deity All Desire had not used his full strength, so he did not think much of it. However, this time he used the reincarnation world. This divine ability was his strongest divine ability, and it was the crystallization of his life's work. Perfected deity All Desire believed that apart from those top-notch perfected deities, no one could break free from his reincarnation world. But now, Lin Feng was a living example of someone who broke free from the reincarnation world. Lin Feng lowered his head and looked at his hallowed body. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was riddled with holes. However, the hallowed body could withstand the bombardment of a lesser divine ability more than 10 times. This power had far exceeded Lin Feng's imagination. Moreover, if not for the fact that the spirit flame hallowed body was so powerful and bought him time, he might not have been able to comprehend the true meaning of the reincarnation world and find out what was incomplete about the universe in his body. Perfected deity All Desire. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. It's all thanks to your reincarnation world that I was able to comprehend reincarnation. Lin Feng gave a half-smile. His gaze was incomparably profound and relaxed. You actually used my reincarnation world to comprehend cultivation principles. Perfected deity All Desire's pupils constricted slightly, and he found it even more unbelievable. If Lin Feng had spent much effort to break free from his reincarnation world, although it was surprising, it would be understandable. But now, Lin Feng was clearly deliberately immersing himself in the reincarnation world in order to comprehend the principle. This was different. This meant that his reincarnation world divine ability was useless against Lin Feng. How could this be possible? Thousand Star divine ability. Perfected deity Thousand Star took the opportunity to use the divine ability for the 12th time. Immediately, the terrifying and violent power of the divine ability that filled the sky drowned Lin Feng's hallowed body. Perfected deity Thousand Star's expression was incomparably insane, even twisted. So what if Lin Feng was awake? With Lin Feng's damaged hallowed body, how many more strikes of the divine ability could he resist? Hence, Lin Feng must die today. Look out! Alliance leader, dodge! I'm afraid after this divine ability, even if Lin Feng wakes up, he won't be able to turn the tables. Seeing perfected deity Thousand Star use the divine ability for the 12th time, everyone shook their heads, their hearts despondent. They wanted to see Lin Feng turn the tables, but they felt that it was impossible. The divine ability that filled the sky had already drowned out Lin Feng's huge hallowed body. Lin Feng's massive hallowed body did not dodge at all, and it was impossible for him to dodge. Hence, as the dust settled, Lin Feng's hallowed body was covered in dense cracks like spiderwebs. It appeared as if it would crack and collapse with a bang at any moment. Haha, Lin Feng. So what if you can wake up from the divine ability of perfected deity all desire? You've already lost the best opportunity. You must die today. Perfected deity Thousand Star threw his head back and laughed aloud. As for Lin Feng, he was as apathetic as ever. In fact, his eyes were filled with a faint trace of mockery and pity, as if in disdain. In the past, only perfected deity Thousand Star had looked at other perfected lords with such a gaze. When could Lin Feng ever look at him with such a gaze? Perfected deity Thousand Star. Looks like you still don't understand why you are an ant. However, an ant is an ant. You will never understand the power of the spirit flame hallowed body. Lin Feng shook his head. In his eyes, perfected deity Thousand Star was indeed an ant, far inferior to perfected deity All Desire. While perfected deity All Desire had a 10% or 20% chance of improving the reincarnation world to a greater divine ability in the future, and becoming a top-notch perfected lord, perfected deity Thousand Star was completely useless and could only stagnate at his current level. Spirit flame hallowed body. Lin Feng's massive hallowed body, which was 100,000 feet tall, slashed hard at the void. Boom! The void shook. In an instant, everyone felt a surging power from the depths of the chaotic void. It was as if it passed through space and instantly surged into Lin Feng's body from the void. They were strands of chaotic spirit flames. Lin Feng's spirit flame hallowed body could absorb the chaotic spirit flames in the chaotic void to enrich the power of his hallowed body. In just a few breaths, most of the dense spiderweb cracks on Lin Feng's hallowed body had recovered. The aura on his body became stronger again. In fact, the halo representing chaotic spirit flames on his body had recovered to dozens in number. This was simply despairing. No, impossible. You're already at the end of your rope. You're trying to trick me? Die! Lin Feng's expression was calm, but a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. You're just an ant. Forget it. I'll let you see the reality. Lin Feng's massive hallowed body moved. Facing the divine abilities that filled the sky, his hallowed body, which was 1,000,000 feet tall, burned with terrifying chaotic flames. The 42 halos made him appear like a flaming god of war. There was a crackling sound. Faced with the power of the divine ability that filled the sky, Lin Feng only extended his hand and grabbed hard. The huge palm instantly passed through the layers of barrier set up by the divine ability. The divine ability that could destroy a world and even shatter a chaotic continent was easily torn apart like thin paper by Lin Feng's huge hand. How is this possible? No, no. Perfected deity Thousand Star retreated in a frenzy. But how could he escape Lin Feng's enormous hand? Almost instantly, Lin Feng clenched his enormous hand tightly. A storm brewed. Countless chaotic rules were rendered ineffective before this enormous hand. Thud. Lin Feng clenched his hand. Perfected deity Thousand Star cried out in agony. His chaotic body could not hold out at all. It was instantly crushed by a palm strike and reduced to ashes. His perfected spirit flew into the depths of the chaos and reincarnated. In the chaotic void, it suddenly became incomparably silent, even eerily so. Fallen. Another perfected deity had fallen. Moreover, he had been the center of attention. Under the witness of so many perfected deities, he had been crushed with a single palm strike and reduced to ashes. Even though he was only going to reincarnate and cultivate again, it could not conceal the fact that he had fallen. Another perfected deity had fallen. This was already the second perfected deity to die at Lin Feng's hands. This was not a perfected lord. Even though there were many perfected deities in the holy cities of chaos, perfected deities were already standing at the peak of cultivation, looking down on all living beings. Over all these years, although perfected deities had also fallen in the holy cities of chaos, such occasions were extremely rare. Now, 2 perfected deities had fallen in a row in such a short period of time, and at the hands of the same person at that. Moreover, the one who killed a perfected deity was a perfected lord, slaying a god. This was a true godslayer. Moreover, it was done with such ease, and without meeting any resistance. He overwhelmed his opponent fair and square with terrifying strength. In the future, no perfected deity would dare to question Lin Feng anymore. In today's battle, he defeated perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star fairly. In fact, perfected deity Thousand Star had even fallen. Many perfected deities' gazes were complicated, and they fell into deep thought. However, all the perfected lords could not help but shout excitedly. They had won. Lin Feng had won. From now on, the Mutual Assistance Alliance was no longer in a precarious situation, but had truly become a strong faction. It was only a matter of time before it ascended to power. Ha ha ha! Slaying a god. He really slayed a god. I shouldn't have questioned the alliance leader previously. That was a perfected deity, and he was crushed directly. Alliance leader really avenged us. Incredible, truly incredible. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that Alliance leader is still a perfected lord. Alliance leader is indeed a genuine perfected lord, and the aura on his body has not changed at all. However, the divine ability he cultivates is simply earth-shattering. It can actually crush a perfected deity. It's incredible. Compared to the jubilation of the perfected lords, most of the perfected deities fell silent. Perfected Lord Absolutist and Perfected Lord Mystic Spirit looked at each other, and both saw the shock and traces of confusion in each other's eyes. He's become even stronger. That's right. He's much stronger than back on the Mystic Spirit continent. This divine ability is really powerful. Perfected Deity Absolutist and Perfected Deity Mystic Spirit both knew very well how strong Lin Feng was back then. But now, in such a short period of time, Lin Feng was already stronger than before, yet Lin Feng's realm had not ascended at all. Then, there was only one reason. The divine ability Lin Feng cultivated was indeed earth-shattering and incredible. Many perfected lords could realize that Lin Feng's divine ability was extraordinary. So could perfected deity Absolutist and perfected deity Mystic Spirit. How could the other perfected deities not have guessed it? Many perfected deities were envious. However, unlike before, the way they looked at Lin Feng no longer contained that blatant greed, let alone any intention of snatching it. The reason was very simple. Lin Feng had slain a god twice, which was enough to prove that Lin Feng's strength was already enough to be ranked among the perfected deities. He was even stronger than ordinary perfected deities, and second only to top-notch perfected deities. Such strength already gave him the right to possess such a powerful divine ability. Perfected deity All Desire, are you going to do it yourself? Or do you want me to do it? Lin Feng stood with his hands behind his back and suddenly said. He had no intention of letting perfected deity All Desire off at all. In an instant, the atmosphere became tense. Countless gazes were focused on perfected deity All Desire. Ha! Perfected deity All Desire looked up and raised his brows. He could not stop Lin Feng from attacking just now, so he did not care about perfected deity Thousand Star's life. Although he had been friends with perfected deity Thousand Star for tens of thousands of years was nothing to a perfected deity. As long as the perfected spirit was not destroyed, they were practically immortal. Life was very long. Why would he care about a mere 10,000 years? Back then, perfected deity All Desire had also joined the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce because of a promise. All these years, he had done many things for perfected deity Thousand Star, and had already repaid the favor. He did not stop him. It seemed a little heartless, but in the eyes of a perfected deity, this was also common. It was fine as long as he himself did not die. Reincarnation would take countless years before one could cultivate to the peak again. No perfected deity wanted to go through reincarnation. But now, Lin Feng actually wanted to kill perfected deity All Desire as well. You want to kill me? Perfected deity All Desire frowned and said, I'm different from perfected deity Thousand Star. I don't have any deep grudges against you. If you win this fight for the chaotic continent, this chaotic continent can belong to you. Our Mutual Assistance Alliance was the first to discover this chaotic continent in the first place. Lin Feng's gaze was cold. I can give you the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce too. That should be enough, right? Perfected deity All Desire really did not want to go through reincarnation. Hence, he even gave up on the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce. As long as he could survive with his strength, the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce could also be rebuilt. Not enough. Actually, Lin Feng did not have to kill perfected deity All Desire. He was establishing his authority. Just slaying gods twice was not enough. He still had to suppress perfected deity All Desire in front of all the perfected deities. Still not enough? Perfected deity All Desire's frown deepened, but he did not get angry. If he were in their shoes, if he won and could kill his opponent at any time, how could he be merciful? After a moment of silence, perfected deity All Desire flipped his hand, and a chaotic spirit treasure appeared in his hand. This chaotic spirit treasure contains a strange chaotic spirit flame. The divine ability you cultivate should be related to chaotic spirit flames, right? Take this chaotic spirit treasure and the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce as my compensation. Perfected deity All Desire waved his hand and handed the chaotic spirit treasure to Lin Feng. Ha! Lin Feng glanced at this chaotic spirit treasure. The spirit flame hallowed body was indeed shaking slightly. Clearly, this was the 43rd type of chaotic spirit flames. He was naturally overjoyed, and a smile appeared on his face. Perfected deity All Desire, your reincarnation world is also very impressive this time. It has the potential to become a greater divine ability. If not for the fact that I have an artifact, I'm afraid it would be difficult for me to stay awake. Perfected deity All Desire looked deeply at Lin Feng, then broke through space and left. Seeing this scene, all the perfected deities understood that Lin Feng had let perfected deity All Desire off. Moreover, perfected deity All Desire had given in. He even offered the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce and a chaotic spirit treasure. To a certain extent, perfected deity All Desire could be considered a very powerful perfected deity below top-notch perfected deities. No one was willing to fight with perfected deity All Desire. However, Lin Feng could defeat perfected deity All Desire. Naturally, the other perfected deities did not dare to underestimate him anymore. Ha! Perfected Lord Lin, your reputation as the top perfected lord is indeed well-deserved. Congratulations, perfected lord. That's right. The divine ability of the top perfected lord is infinitely powerful. The rise of the Mutual Assistance Alliance in the future is only a matter of time. Congratulations. Perfected Lord, why don't you come to my manor to discuss the principles when you have the chance? I also cultivate a body-tempering divine ability. Congratulations, Perfected Lord Lin. Many perfected deities even took the initiative to congratulate Lin Feng. This also meant that Lin Feng had obtained the recognition of these perfected deities. The status of the top perfected lord was equivalent to a perfected deity. This was probably the first time in the history of chaos. Lin Feng did not show arrogance. Instead, he smiled and said politely, "Thank you, perfected deities. The headquarters of our Mutual Assistance Alliance has yet to be established. Another day, we will definitely receive you well." Haha, no problem. We won't disturb you anymore, perfected lord. Hence, the group of perfected deities all left with smiles on their faces. They never mentioned this chaotic continent again, as if they were really here to congratulate him. It was already tacit agreement that this chaotic continent was occupied by Lin Feng and the Mutual Assistance Alliance. After the group of perfected deities left, perfected Lord Long, perfected Lord Yuan Jinggang, and the others knelt on the ground in unison and said, "Greetings, Alliance Leader." They all accepted and respected this Alliance Leader wholeheartedly. Lin Feng also accepted this bow openly. He was also qualified to receive such a great bow. Without him, these top-notch perfected lords would probably not have been able to escape the fate of falling today. There was also the chaotic continent. This new chaotic continent could not be saved at all. Everyone, I'm afraid will have to work hard for a while longer. The Mutual Assistance Alliance has to recruit members vigorously and mine this chaotic continent as soon as possible. Only then can our Mutual Assistance Alliance get on track. Lin Feng gave all kinds of orders one by one. He had not cultivated for long, but he had a lot of experience. From his home planet to the universe and then the chaos, Lin Feng had controlled innumerable factions. Hence, he naturally ran the Mutual Assistance Alliance with only a dozen or so people in an orderly manner. Alliance leader, these are all trivial matters. With Alliance leader's current reputation, people will definitely join. That's right. The growth of our Mutual Assistance Alliance is only a matter of time. Joining the Mutual Assistance Alliance was the best choice I've made in my life. These top-notch perfected lords were all full of energy and confidence now. With the support of the Mutual Assistance Alliance and this new chaotic continent, it did not seem like a fool's dream for them to become perfected deities in the future. Lin Feng nodded, then flew into this chaotic continent. He still wanted to continue staying in this chaotic continent and search for other chaotic spirit flames. Cultivation was the most important thing. After this battle, no one could shake Lin Feng's reputation as the top perfected lord. Even many perfected lords in the holy cities of chaos seemed to puff up their chests when they heard this news. Even those perfected deities were full of praise and respect when mentioning the name of the top perfected lord. He might be the strongest perfected lord in the history of chaos. All kinds of discussions about Lin Feng were even more intense. In particular, Lin Feng's powerful divine ability caused heated discussions, causing a sensation in the holy city of chaos. Finally, someone obtained some clues. In particular, in the holy city Styx, some ancient perfected deities recalled that back then, there was a disciple under hallowed venerable Styx called perfected deity Easterly. He seemed to have once wanted to create an ultimate divine ability called the Spirit Flame Hallowed Body. Unfortunately, he failed in the end. Moreover, perfected deity Easterly was devoured by a chaotic hallowed beast. His perfected spirit was destroyed, and he fell completely. Originally, this was already very ancient news. As Lin Feng, the top perfected lord, rose to power, many perfected deities recalled perfected deity Easterly again. Originally, some perfected deities actually had some ideas. After all, it was a terrifying divine ability that could allow a perfected lord to slay a god. However, as the news spread that Spirit Flame Hallowed Body was very likely a divine ability created by perfected deity Easterly back then, for a time, no perfected deities had designs on it anymore. When it involved a great and powerful hallowed venerable, even if there was only the slimmest chance, no perfected deity dared to risk it. Moreover, Lin Feng was not a weakling either. When this news reached Lin Feng was very surprised as well. Perfected deity Easterly? Lin Feng muttered. He seemed to have realized something. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, a year went by. Although it had only been a year, the Mutual Assistance Alliance developed rapidly. Its members had already exceeded 10,000 cultivators, and most of them were perfected lords. Of course, there were fewer peak perfected lords, but there were still hundreds of them. The Mutual Assistance Alliance's power expanded further. Now, it had already become a veritable colossus. Unfortunately, not a single perfected deity had joined. How arrogant were perfected deities! They were high and mighty. Even a faction presided over by an ordinary perfected deity would find it difficult to recruit a perfected deity, let alone the Mutual Assistance Alliance. It was just a faction formed by a group of chaotic perfected lords. Without Lin Feng, the top perfected lord, presiding over it, the Mutual Assistance Alliance would not be able to do much, let alone occupy a chaotic continent. Lin Feng handed over the management of the Mutual Assistance Alliance to perfected Lord Long and perfected Lord Yuan Jinggang. The Mutual Assistance Alliance was not penniless. Not only did it have a chaotic continent, it even had the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce. Of course, now that the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce had been renamed the Mutual Assistance Chamber of Commerce, its development was also very rapid. Everything in the Mutual Assistance Alliance was slowly getting on track, and Lin Feng did not need to worry. In the past year, as the chaotic continent was mined and the Millennium Chamber of Commerce was incorporated, the number of top-grade chaotic prime crystals in Lin Feng's possession had soared. Although he was not comparable to those wealthy perfected deities, he was really not inferior to ordinary perfected deities. However, Lin Feng did not save up many top-grade chaotic prime crystals. No matter how many top-grade chaotic prime crystals there were, it would be a waste if they were not converted into strength. Hence, Lin Feng was purchasing chaotic spirit flames at a high price in the name of the Mutual Assistance Alliance in the entire chaos. After Lin Feng collected all the ordinary chaotic spirit flames, it undoubtedly became very difficult to collect some rare chaotic spirit flames. Even after raising the price to dozens of top-grade chaotic prime crystals, Lin Feng had gained very little in the past year. Lin Feng only obtained 3 types of chaotic spirit flames, and he refined them all into the spirit flame hallowed body. In addition to the chaotic spirit flames that perfected deity All Desire offered as compensation, Lin Feng now had 46 types of chaotic spirit flames. Although obtaining 3 types of chaotic spirit flames a year was actually not a small amount, this was only the first year. As Lin Feng cultivated more and more types of chaotic spirit flames, it became more and more difficult to find new chaotic spirit flames. Even if Lin Feng raised the purchase price again and again, he did not gain anything. Without the chaotic spirit flames, Lin Feng's increase in strength gradually became minuscule and almost stagnated. Hence, Lin Feng simply focused all his energy on comprehending the chaotic rule of space. Although the Mutual Assistance Alliance headquarters was in the Holy City Prima Mobile, Lin Feng had always lived on the chaotic continent. The supreme rule of Holy City Prima Mobile and Holy City Styx did not extend to this chaotic continent. Hence, Lin Feng could use the chaotic origin stone to comprehend the chaotic rule of space without worries. No one would discover it. It was very safe. However, even with the chaotic origin stone, Lin Feng's improvement was still very slow. The chaotic rule of space was different from other chaotic rules. It was not so easy to comprehend. However, Lin Feng was obsessed with the chaotic rule of space. This was because Lin Feng had already gained a foothold in the chaos, and wanted to return to his home planet and his family in the origin universe as soon as possible. If he just relied on the chaotic spaceship to fly, there was no knowing how long it would take to return to the origin universe. After all, the chaos was so huge. Even the fastest chaotic spaceship would require an incredibly long amount of time to fly through the chaos. Hence, only using spatial warp was the fastest. Moreover, Lin Feng was already the top perfected lord, and had even killed perfected deities twice. The only difference between him and a perfected deity was that he could not warp space. This was his only weakness. If he could make up for this weakness, Lin Feng would almost be no different from a perfected deity. He could take his time to comprehend the other chaotic rules of space, but he had to comprehend the chaotic rule of space as soon as possible. Buzz. Suddenly, the chaotic origin stone shook slightly. Lin Feng came to a realization, and a trace of inspiration appeared in his mind. Even though the appearance of this trace of inspiration was very obscure, and seemed to be fleeting, Lin Feng grasped it at once. Space, open. Lin Feng had a thought. He tapped gently with his finger. There was a crackling sound. A spatial crack instantly appeared in the secret chamber, revealing the dark and deep aura inside. Huh? I comprehended it. Lin Feng was a little surprised. He looked at his hands in a daze. He had not used any power just now. He had only seized a trace of inspiration in his mind and casually slashed out with his finger. And just like that, he tore the space apart. This feeling is really miraculous. However, the chaotic rule of space feels too heavy. Lin Feng carefully experienced the chaotic rule of space he had acquired. Compared to the law of space in the internal universe, it seemed to be very heavy. Even if he had acquired it, he had only scratched the surface. At most, it could only warp space and be used for traveling. The true essence of the chaotic space, and even comprehending the origin through the chaotic rules, was still far from Lin Feng. However, at this level, it was also the realm of most perfected deities. Most perfected deities could also only use the rule of space to warp space. Only certain special perfected deities could use the chaotic rule of space to cultivate divine abilities. Any divine ability cultivated using the rule of space was without exception a famous greater divine ability. Ordinary perfected deities did not even dare to think about it. "I've finally succeeded." Lin Feng heaved a long sigh of relief. The comprehension of the chaotic rule of space was not complicated, but it was abnormally difficult. It was completely arduous. This was only the chaotic rule of space. There were still countless rules in the chaos. How long would it take for Lin Feng to comprehend them all? 1,000 or 10,000 years? Or even longer? Lin Feng smiled weakly and shook his head. He felt that it was too long, but in reality, even the person who used the shortest time to become a perfected deity in the chaos was over 10,000 years old. How long had Lin Feng been cultivating? "It's time to return to the origin universe." Lin Feng stood up. At the thought of returning to the origin universe, many figures appeared in his mind. They were all figures Lin Feng was familiar with and closest to. He had been in the chaos for neither a long nor a short period of time, but it had not exceeded 1,000 years. It had only been a few hundred years at most. To a perfected deity or a chaotic life form, a few hundred years was just a blink of an eye. It was not worth mentioning at all. However, to Lin Feng, a few hundred years were already very long. Now that he had already gained a foothold in the holy city of chaos, he naturally had to bring his family to the holy city of chaos to make proper arrangements. After all, the holy cities of chaos were still the safest places in the chaos. Perfected Lord Ziyuan, Perfected Lord Long, and Perfected Lord Yuan. On this day, Lin Feng presided over the chaotic continent and summoned the 3 perfected lords he trusted the most. Apart from Perfected Lord Ziyuan, the other 2 were also the center of the true core of the Mutual Assistance Alliance. They were the Alliance deputy leaders, and were in charge of the Mutual Assistance Alliance. This chaotic continent had already been stabilized by the Mutual Assistance Alliance. There were even all kinds of divine arrays everywhere. Even a perfected deity might not be able to invade it easily. At least, it would not be a problem for them to hold out for a period of time. This was only set up by the Mutual Assistance Alliance after spending a large sum to invite perfected deity array masters. Lin Feng had personally named this chaotic continent the Inception. This symbolized the beginning of the Mutual Assistance Alliance, the beginning of everything. Hence, to the Mutual Assistance Alliance, the Inception continent was not just a chaotic continent. It was the foundation and hope. "Alliance leader, why did you summon us here today?" Perfected Lord Yuan asked respectfully. Right now, Perfected Lord Yuan was basking in success and prestige, and wielded the authority of the Mutual Assistance Alliance. It was very alluring. With Lin Feng presiding over it, even perfected deities did not dare to underestimate the Mutual Assistance Alliance. However, Perfected Lord Yuan also knew very well who to thank for all of this. Hence, he did not dare to show any disrespect to Lin Feng, the Alliance leader, even though Lin Feng did not handle the matters of the Mutual Assistance Alliance much, and was more like a visible symbol of the Mutual Assistance Alliance. Lin Feng glanced at Perfected Lord Yuan, Perfected Lord Long, and Perfected Lord Ziyuan. Hence, he took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Other than Perfected Lord Yuan, you've known me for a long time. Even Perfected Lord Yuan probably has a guess about my identity, right?" The 3 perfected lords looked at each other. In reality, there were many rumors about Lin Feng. After all, Lin Feng was the top perfected lord. He was the first powerful entity in the history of chaos to kill a perfected deity as a perfected lord, and accomplish the feat of slaying a god. Moreover, he had slain gods twice. There was no luck to it at all. Such an expert was legendary in every sense of the word. It would not be an exaggeration to call him a legendary figure. Around the legendary figure, many people were investigating. They were all speculating about how Lin Feng could slay a god. Apart from that terrifying divine ability that seemed to be a greater divine ability, what other secrets did Lin Feng have? Why could a perfected lord cultivate that powerful divine ability? Many people even already had some hypotheses. Alliance leader? You mean those speculations? Perfected Lord Yuan asked tentatively. That's right. I'm referring to those speculations. That's all nonsense. Alliance leader, you don't have to take it to heart. No, some of those guesses are correct. I'm indeed a transcendent. Boom. Perfected Lord Yuan's mind shook. Transcendent. Lin Feng was indeed a transcendent. Perfected Lord Long and Perfected Lord Ziyuan were not that shocked. They had long known about it. Perfected Lord Yuan's gaze was filled with excitement. He knew very well what a transcendent meant. Every transcendent was an entity with extraordinary talent and comprehension ability, but transcendents were simply too rare. In reality, powerful perfected lords and perfected deities in the chaos had discovered many origin universes, but there were very few transcendents. If someone was a transcendent, their future achievements would be limitless. There was at least an 80% chance that transcendents would become perfected deities. There was also even more daunting data. Among the founders of the 7 holy cities in the chaos, 5 of the 7 hallowed venerables who linked their perfected spirits to the chaos were transcendents. Only 2 of them were native life forms in the chaos. This was enough to show how terrifying transcendents were. At the very least, they had infinite potential. Perfected Lord Yuan was very glad that he had invited Lin Feng back then. This might be the best decision he had made in his life. With Lin Feng, a transcendent, as the leader, the Mutual Assistance Alliance would only grow stronger and stronger. Then, as the Alliance deputy leader, his status would naturally rise. It was not impossible for him to even become a perfected deity in the future. Alliance leader, why are you telling us this? I'm leaving. As a transcendent, I have family. I want to return to my origin universe and bring my family to the holy city of chaos. I'll even move the origin universe near the Inception continent. Perfected Lord Yuan frowned slightly and said, It's easy to bring Alliance leader's family to the holy city of chaos, but it's probably too difficult to move an origin universe near the Inception continent. That's right. Destroying an origin universe is a piece of cake for us. Ordinary chaotic life forms can devour the universe origin of the origin universe. Any chaotic perfected person can easily destroy an origin universe. However, it's too difficult to move such a huge origin universe across the chaos and near the Inception continent. Lin Feng frowned. This was indeed a rather troublesome matter. Actually, he had also thought of putting the origin universe in his internal universe previously. Lin Feng's internal universe was already very huge now. It should not be too much of a problem to accommodate an origin universe. However, the problem was that both were origin universes. Once they met, they would repel each other, and one might even wind up being destroyed. Even if Lin Feng could control his internal universe, he could not control the origin universe of his home planet. Hence, Lin Feng thought of summoning Perfected Lord Yuan, Perfected Lord Long, and the others. He hoped to find a safe method in the chaos to move the origin universe near the Inception continent. Do the 3 Perfected Lords have any ideas? Perfected Lord Dragon and Perfected Lord Ziyuan were both deep in thought. Actually, it was just an origin universe. How could it be so complicated? Even transcendents had never seen anyone move an origin universe to a certain place in chaos. As soon as many transcendents transcended, basically all their origin universes had been destroyed. Even if some were still intact, they would only bring some people close to them to the chaos. As for the others in the origin universe, they would just leave them to fend for themselves. At most, they would give them some techniques, opportunities, and so on from the chaos. That could already be considered a favor. However, Lin Feng did not want the origin universe to fend for itself. After all, that was where he had once transcended, where he had once fought. Moreover, Lin Feng had been in the holy city of chaos for a long time, and had learned detailed information about transcendence. Almost all transcendents transcended the origin universe through the traditional method of transcendence. They each had their own opportunities. Even the 5 great and powerful chaotic hallowed venerables were no exception. He had never seen any record of one transforming into a universe. On the other hand, Lin Feng had succeeded in transforming into a universe. However, Lin Feng's technique of transforming into a universe was found in the origin universe. Moreover, there were predecessors who failed to transform into a universe. Lin Feng could only cultivate according to the method of a chaotic life form now, but his foundation was the internal universe. Without anyone to guide him, and without the cultivation experience of his predecessors, Lin Feng had always been exploring on his own in cultivation. There were many obstacles and difficulties. In fact, if Lin Feng wanted to find more detailed and precise information on transforming into a universe, he would have to return to the origin universe. Hence, he could not leave this origin universe to fend for itself. Actually, it's not impossible. Suddenly, perfected Lord Yuan lifted his head, as if he had thought of something. Huh? What is it? Only a divine array can move an origin universe for a long distance unscathed. However, this requirement for a divine array is very, very high. Even a divine array refined by an ordinary perfected deity cannot do it. It has to be an array master among perfected deities. It's very difficult to hire such an array master. Perfected Lord Yuan shook his head. Although the Mutual Assistance Alliance was developing quite well now, and had even invited perfected deities to set up divine arrays on the Inception continent, there was not a single one who could truly be considered an array master. The divine arrays set up by array masters among perfected deities were simply incredible. Even trapping and killing a perfected deity was nothing. Hence, every perfected deity array master had a high status, even equivalent to a top-notch perfected deity. Whether I can invite him is one thing, and whether I try to is another. Since a perfected deity array master can set up a divine array that can move the origin universe, I naturally have to pay him a visit. Perfected Lord Yuan, who is the strongest perfected deity array master in the Holy City Prima Mobile at the moment? The strongest perfected deity array master in Holy City Prima Mobile should be perfected deity Rui. Huh? Perfected deity Rui. That's right, it's perfected deity Rui. Although perfected deity Rui has not cultivated any greater divine ability, he focused all his energy on studying divine arrays. He once set up the divine array and captured 9 chaotic divine beasts alive in one fell swoop. His name shook the holy city. Even some top-notch perfected deities wouldn't dare to say that they can capture so many chaotic divine beasts alive. He could set up a divine array that captured 9 chaotic divine beasts alive? All right, perfected deity Rui it is. Prepare a generous gift for me. I'll personally visit perfected deity Rui. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It was not easy to set up a divine array and capture the 9 chaotic divine beasts alive. In fact, it was very difficult. Any perfected deity would know how strong chaotic divine beasts were. Perfected deities had divine abilities, and divine beasts also had innate divine abilities. The power was incredible. Moreover, as divine beasts had awakened their bloodline, their physiques were terrifyingly strong. It was nothing out of the ordinary for them to resist divine abilities head-on. In the past, chaotic dire beasts and chaotic spirit beasts were often at a disadvantage when facing perfected persons and perfected lords. Even perfected persons and perfected lords could slaughter a group of chaotic dire beasts and chaotic spirit beasts. However, once they metamorphosed into chaotic divine beasts, the situation would be reversed. In a fight between the chaotic divine beast and the perfected deity, while it was not as simple as slaughtering the perfected deity, it was very normal for the chaotic divine beast to have the upper hand. If the perfected deity did not have powerful divine abilities and chaotic spirit treasures, they would very likely be torn apart by the chaotic divine beasts, and their perfected spirit would have to reincarnate to cultivate again. Perfected deity Rui had not cultivated any greater divine ability, and was not a top-notch perfected deity yet. However, he could set up a chaotic divine array and capture the 9 chaotic divine beasts alive. His strength was comparable to those top-notch perfected deities. Perhaps within the divine array, perfected deity Rui could be considered a top-notch perfected deity. He was even more terrifying than ordinary top-notch perfected deities. After all, it was very easy for a top-notch perfected deity to kill 9 ordinary chaotic divine beasts. However, it would be extremely difficult, almost impossible, to capture them alive. For a long time, perfected deity Rui did not study divine abilities and advance them to the level of greater divine abilities. Instead, he took another path to study the divine arrays. However, the effect was the same. After becoming an array master, one would be comparable to a top-notch perfected deity in the divine array. This meant that there were many paths in cultivation. As long as one could study their path thoroughly, they could all reach the peak. Lin Feng wanted to visit perfected deity Rui personally. The Mutual Assistance Alliance also prepared a generous gift for Lin Feng, and Lin Feng led some people to Holy City Prima Mobile. We've arrived at the Rui Villa. Lin Feng could already see the Rui Villa. This villa was enveloped by divine arrays and was faintly discernible. The situation inside could not be seen clearly at all. It was the same even if Lin Feng used his mental power. If he tried to pry by force, he would even feel his heart palpitate. Although they could not fight in the holy cities, and even top-notch perfected deities did not dare to attack, if someone barged into a divine array and suffered a backlash from it, they would have courted their own deaths. The people of the holy palaces would not interfere either. Lin Feng really felt his heart palpitate. If he barged into the Rui Villa by force, even he probably could not guarantee that he could retreat unscathed. How was this just an ordinary divine array? It was clearly a series of arrays. An unparalleled lethal array was contained within ordinary divine arrays. Impressive. As expected of perfected deity Rui, Lin Feng sensed that the divine array of the Rui Villa was extraordinary, and became even more confident in perfected deity Rui. The higher perfected deity Rui's attainments in arrays, the better. Otherwise, how could he meet Lin Feng's requirements? However, Lin Feng only arrived at the gates of the villa, and did not dare to barge in by force. He could only stand outside and wait. Soon, the door of the villa opened, and an old man who appeared to be a butler appeared. He was a top-notch perfected lord. When he saw Lin Feng, he frowned and said, "Who are you?" Lin Feng of the Mutual Assistance Alliance is here to visit perfected deity Rui. Perfected Lord Lin? The butler's heart skipped a beat. He actually observed Lin Feng curiously as well. Moreover, he took the visiting card from Lin Feng and the generous gift he had prepared. That was undoubtedly a generous gift. Even though following perfected deity Rui, the butler had seen only too many perfected deities, even top-notch perfected deities, this was the first time he had seen a gift that was worth hundreds of top-grade chaotic prime crystals. Perfected Lord, please wait a moment. I'll inform His Majesty the perfected deity. The butler did not dare to be negligent. Lin Feng's current reputation was at its peak. He was the top perfected lord in the chaos, and had slain gods twice. Among them, he could even defeat perfected deity All Desire. Any one of these feats was earth-shattering, and Lin Feng had accomplished several. Moreover, he had given such a truly generous gift. The butler could not afford to be negligent. Hence, the butler hurriedly went to report. Lin Feng stood quietly outside the gates. With his current status and identity, he still had to stand outside the gates. However, he did not show any impatience, as if it was nothing out of the ordinary. This state of mind was not something ordinary cultivators could possess. Even the few perfected lord attendants behind Lin Feng were a little indignant, but seeing that their alliance leader was still calm, they could not help but admire him. Swoosh! Suddenly, the gates of the villa gradually disappeared. A thick fog filled the air and quickly shrouded Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng remained calm and allowed the thick fog to cover him. Swoosh! There was no knowing how much time had passed. Perhaps it was an instant, or perhaps it was a long time. Even Lin Feng's senses were blocked. When the thick fog dissipated, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. How could he still be outside the gates at this moment? He was clearly already sitting in a small pavilion. Opposite him was a smiling white-robed man. There was no aura on his body at all. Or rather, it was as if his aura had completely been integrated with this world. Perfected deity Rui. Lin Feng instantly realized the identity of the white-robed man. He was the master of the Rui Villa, the array master of Holy City Prima Mobile, perfected deity Rui. The white-robed man smiled. The pavilion was surrounded by rippling lakes. In just this small pavilion, the warm spring breeze blowing on one's face felt very comfortable. Perfected Lord, what do you think of my place? It's quite nice. It's not inferior to the holy land of cultivation in the chaos. Lin Feng nodded and praised. He was sincerely impressed. At the same time, he was very wary of perfected deity Rui. Just now, he was still outside the gates, but he was here in an instant. What did this mean? This meant that he had been moved here by the array in an instant. Of course, it was only because Lin Feng did not resist that he could be moved here. However, even Lin Feng could not sense such an unpredictable array. It was indeed shocking. Even now, Lin Feng had been enveloped by the array at some point without his knowledge. As if sensing Lin Feng's confusion, the white-robed man said with a smile, "The area within 10,000 feet around the villa's gates is actually already in the range of the array. If you see the villa's gates, it means that you have stepped into the array." Lin Feng's entire body shook as realization dawned on him. However, the wariness in his heart intensified. Perfected deity Rui knew the essence of arrays very well. Once one was trapped in the array, even top-notch perfected deities would probably have a hard time. As for ordinary perfected deities, any number of them could be killed. This was the terrifying aspect of arrays. They could trap and kill enemies without anyone noticing. Even Lin Feng could not discover it. Of course, arrays were actually even harder to study than divine abilities. One might be able to master some powerful divine abilities after studying them for billions of years. However, if one did not possess natural talent, they would stagnate and not see any improvement in arrays even after billions of years. Impressive. Your attainments in perfected deity arrays are indeed profound. Perfected deity Rui smiled and said, "Perfected Lord, your reputation has soared recently. Instead of staying in the Inception continent and managing the Mutual Assistance Alliance, you gave me such a huge gift." Why? Perfected deity Rui had actually rejected even ordinary perfected deities many times. He would reject them directly on these occasions. No perfected deity would get angry. After all, perfected deity Rui's status was equivalent to a top-notch perfected deity. No one was willing to offend a top-notch perfected deity. Lin Feng hesitated for a moment, but still said in a low voice, "I did come here this time to ask you for a favor, perfected deity." "What is it?" "Perfected deity, please set up a divine array that can move an origin universe." "Huh? A divine array that can move an origin universe?" Perfected deity Rui frowned. Everyone knew how difficult it was to move an origin universe, let alone set up a divine array to move it. Even a perfected deity array master would not dare to say that it could be done easily. Why would perfected Lord Lin need to move an origin universe? It has to be known that a divine array to move an origin universe is not so easy to set up. Even I would need to spend a lot of effort to do so. Lin Feng was glad to hear it, however. Perfected deity Rui could indeed set up such an array. Lin Feng was simply overjoyed about the turn of events. Lin Feng was very sincere. Moreover, with his status, he was actually vaguely above ordinary perfected deities. The reason was very simple. Potential. Lin Feng's potential was infinite. He was only a perfected lord now, but he could already slay a perfected deity above his level. What if he became a perfected deity in the future? Hence, even perfected deity Rui, whose status was comparable to a top-notch perfected deity, was willing to meet Lin Feng. A transcendent. I see. Perfected deity Rui was deep in thought. A strange glint even flashed across his eyes. All cultivators in the chaos knew about transcendence. Transcendence could be considered extremely rare among the cultivators in the chaos. Take the holy city Primum Mobile, for example. In such a huge holy city, there were less than 5 transcendents. There were probably less than 50 transcendents in the 7 holy cities. However, the achievements of transcendence were all eye-catching. Some transcendents have become top-notch perfected deities, and were famous. They could even retreat unscathed before chaotic spirit beasts. There were also some who could refine chaotic spirit treasures, which were very powerful, and were even comparable to a strike from a greater divine ability. Those were true top-notch chaotic spirit treasures that everyone sought. There were also 5 transcendents who obtained the chaotic origin stone and comprehended the supreme rule. From then on, they controlled the supreme rule and linked their perfected spirits to the chaos, becoming great, undying, and indestructible chaotic hallowed venerables. Every transcendent had infinite potential. After all, it was extremely difficult to transcend among trillions of living beings in the origin universe. The obstacles in the process would filter out all who were unworthy. All transcendents had top-notch temperaments, talent, and opportunities. Hence, every transcendent was usually very extraordinary and could obtain extraordinary achievements. Even Lin Feng, who was only a perfected lord, was worthy of his status as a transcendent. As a perfected lord, he killed a perfected deity above his level and accomplished the feat of slaying a god. Such a feat had already become a legend in the entire chaos and would be passed on for an eternity. There are many rumors in the outside world that the perfected lord is a transcendent. I didn't quite believe them at first, but after hearing perfected lord's personal admittance, now, I realize that there's no smoke without fire. Perfected lord is indeed a transcendent. Lin Feng asked in a low voice, "Perfected deity, are you willing to set up a divine array?" Actually, it's not difficult to set up a divine array that can move an origin universe. However, it's very difficult to protect the origin universe from tremors. Moreover, perfected lord should have comprehended the rule of space, right? Then you can warp through space. Warping space with an origin universe is almost lethal for the origin universe. However, if one does not warp space and only flies slowly, how long will it take to fly to the holy city of chaos? Hearing that there was actually so much difficulty in setting up a divine array, Lin Feng's frown deepened. However, it's not impossible. I created a special type of divine array that happens to be able to resolve your problem. As long as the divine array is complete, it won't be a problem for a perfected lord to warp space with an origin universe. However, I've never released this divine array. It's a supreme divine array that I rely on to preserve my own life. It can't be imparted lightly. Seeing perfected deity Rui's thoughtful expression, Lin Feng cupped his hands and said sincerely, "Perfected deity, please do not hesitate to help. If you have any requests in the future, I will definitely heed your call." "Oh? You're really willing to do anything?" A sharp glint flashed across perfected deity Rui's eyes. "As long as it doesn't violate my principles, I'm naturally willing." Lin Feng thought for a moment and nodded. "All right, I only need a promise. If perfected lord agrees to it, it's not impossible for me to set up this divine array." "What promise?" "It's very simple. If a perfected lord becomes a perfected deity in the future, you must agree to one of my requests. You must never violate the promise." "Just one request after becoming a perfected deity?" Lin Feng was a little hesitant. He understood perfected deity Rui's plan. The other party did not have any requests at this moment, but requested Lin Feng to help after becoming a perfected deity. This proved that perfected deity Rui's request was definitely not a minor matter. Even the current Lin Feng was not qualified to help. He had to become a perfected deity before he was qualified to help. Perhaps there was even some danger to it, but Lin Feng was also very confident. Once he became a perfected deity, his strength would be countless times stronger than now. It would not be a big deal even if he agreed to a request from perfected deity Rui. It was worth paying some price for the origin universe. "All right, I agree." Lin Feng weighed the pros and cons for a moment, and finally made up his mind. He nodded and agreed to perfected deity Rui's request.